Hello and welcome to Picture Astrology. In this quick video, we will learn about the implications of conjunction of two planets, Jupiter and Saturn. And these two outer planets, Saturn as well as Jupiter, are supposed to have some of the most significant impacts on our lives according to Vedic astrology, because they are two of the slowest moving planet which are considered in Eastern astrology, because traditionally Pluto, Neptune and Uranus are not considered in Vedic astrology. And these two planets together are supposed to give long lasting things for your life. So any conjunction of these two great planets can have immense significations in a person's chart. And as always, we will have emphasis on the practical side of things, how you can see the impact of it in your real life. And also for the lovers of astrology, I will give a very important sutra or method using which you can try to learn the good and the bad effects of not just this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, but any other planetary conjunction as well. So in conjunction of planets, when two or more planets come together, there are actually three important energies which are at play. First of all, the planets, or as they are called in Vedic astrology, the grahas, their nature, their significance, and also very importantly, their relationship with one another becomes highly important. And another important aspect is, if you have seen my video about differences between the house, sign and planets, the three fundamentals of astrology, be it Eastern or Western astrology, but the primary difference between these three is that planets are the most tangible entity among all these. Planets are the only thing among these which have a physical existence, which you can actually see floating around in the sky. And similarly, in real life, planets, by virtue of their inherent nature and also by virtue of ownership of houses, represents tangible entities, tangible things in life. So conjunction can be seen as two actual elements, two physical elements coming together, almost like a mixture which is happening. And in this mixture, the third most important thing is the sign in which this combination is taking place, because every conjunction would be taking place in some or the other rashi or sign. And another important way to view it is that every sign we know is 30-degree space in the zodiac belt. So it's a huge amount of space which is occupied by a sign, whereas a planet occupies a minuscule part in that 30-degree sign. It's almost like a dot. The largest angle which is subtended on our eyes by planets which are considered in Vedic astrology are Sun and Moon. And these two planets, or grahas more correctly, also subtend an angle which is less than 1 degree. So the amount of space in the sign which is occupied by the entities, the planetary entities, is very minuscule. So you can pretty much see this as, like a mixture of two elements happening in a solvent. So this is like a solvent, the sign, and the elements are the solubles, or these two solutes. In scientific language, two solutes come together in a solvent and a mixture is produced. Now these two combinations, depending upon the nature of the planets and their inherent relationship with each other, could be highly beneficial, could be not so beneficial, could be good in some ways, could be different in other ways. It can cause the properties of one planet to highly dominate the other, or they could just mix in perfect proportion and create almost like a new compound. So these are those nitty-gritties which have to be considered when we see the any conjunction. But now let's come to that special trick or a sutra I referred to in the beginning of the video, which can help student of astrology relate with any kind of conjunction. So one of the ways to see a conjunction or coming together of one or two or more planets is to find out the elements or tangible substances which these two planets represents in real life and see how those tangible substances work together. Now, one big caveat here is that every graha represents enormous amount of things in your life. So any two substance which you choose, they have to be comparable. You should not say that, Saturn represents, say, coal, and Jupiter represents sweets which you eat. Now, how do they go together? They obviously don't go together. So you should take any comparable items. So in this case, we can say Saturn represents oil, any kind of oil is represented by Saturn, and Jupiter represents turmeric, or as it is called as haldi in Hindi or Sanskrit. Now, oil and turmeric mixture has been one of the key ingredients in Ayurvedic massages, and different types of oil with temperature etc. are used for different ways of treating a patient. So in today's world, a good combination of Saturn and Jupiter can represent physiotherapy or knowledge and inclination towards various kind of massages and related impact or curiosity towards them. So this is one very important trick, and in coming videos we will expand more about it. But in terms of Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, we must know that the relationship between the two of these is completely neutral. Jupiter as well as Saturn, they both treat each other as neutral. There is no friendship, there is no enmity. And this is probably the best way in which two of the most mature planets should treat each other. So as we discussed in the beginning, that Saturn and Jupiter both, they are the slowest planet which are considered in Vedic astrology. Also, if you see their ownership of the signs, they own the last 4 signs, 9, 10, 11, 12, right in the top of the hierarchy. They are the most mature representative elements in astrology, and it is so natural for these mature behaving planets to really consider each other with complete neutrality. No friendship, no enmity. So one simple inference you can right now bring out that this combination enforces some kind of mature behavior in the person. And this will be more prominent if this combination affects your Lagna or first house or ascendant lord or even moon. In case it affects moon, then that maturity will show up in your emotions also. Person, we know it is said that when Jupiter and Saturn combined affects moon, person becomes easy to forget and forgive. That mature behavior, that neutrality can seep in the emotions. They behave very maturely. And if this affects your first house or somehow ascendant, then the looks of the person could also be mature. Other thing is that this combination imparts a kind of wisdom. They are the two oldest planets. Jupiter and Saturn, they both are old planets. And old people have more worldly wisdom. They have more practical knowledge, more practical understanding of life. So this combination is very important for any kind of practical knowledge, any kind of practical understanding. If it affects your second house, then people will speak very maturely too. Very, very, words seeped in practical experience. Now, one other important aspect is that Jupiter represents all kind of enthusiasm, optimism, grace, happiness, happy-go-lucky nature. Whereas Saturn is very realistic. Saturn represents realism. It represents boundaries. It is definitely not happy-go-lucky. It shows the lessons which have to be learned in your life before you can get to the success which is promised by Jupiter. So this combination, this is one area where a sort of contradicting implications come together. And in such cases, the solvent or the sign in which this is happening, and also the house in which it is happening, but more importantly sign, because Some signs are going to be more conducive for Jupiter, whereas other signs are going to be more conducive for Saturn. And depending upon their relative strength, this dichotomy of enthusiasm versus realism, optimism versus pessimism, sometimes really going high in their emotions and the very next moment going down in their emotions, that kind of behavior will play in. Now which one will dominate, how things will play out exactly, will depend primarily upon the sign and secondly upon the house in which it is placed. But in some form or the other, there's optimism, pessimism, sometimes very happy, sometimes really serious, sometimes really talking big about life and suddenly pondering about restrictions of the practical life, etc. That kind of contradictory behavior can easily be observed, and we will talk more about it when we look at how these two planets behave in, say, each of the signs. But for now, just continuing with some other general implications of Jupiter and Saturn, that this is one combination which we saw represents mature mind, which shows old head, but it is also good for long life, old people, because Saturn is the karaka of your life energies. In fact, one of the karakas of your lifespan. And Jupiter here, without affliction, generally is an indicator of a person who has a good long life or who grows up enough to see the old age. And actually it is a sign that the old age of the person will also be good, provided no affliction to this combination. Now another thing in terms of the spirituality of the person, which is commonly observed when Jupiter Saturn combines in a natal chart, is that even if the horoscope say very spiritually inclined, there will be two aspects. One, there will be a sort of ascetic nature in the person, and secondly, success or work in the physical world will also be important. They would rather express their spirituality by helping others, by helping poor, by helping old age people, by doing charities for kids, and more of socially active spiritual life rather than opting to sit in meditation. This combination can help in meditation and finding that spiritual calmness of yoga, etc. But somehow a social element, a worldly ascetic element always comes in with this combination of Jupiter and Saturn. So friends, this was a quick introduction to, say, conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. In the next part of this video, I will try to cover how this conjunction affects different signs, or what are the implications when this conjunction happens in different signs, what kind of professions, what kind of behavior, etc. comes up due to the way Saturn and Jupiter behaves in the environment provided by different rashis. But thank you so much for being with me in this video, and please do share your comments if you have this combination in your chart. This will help everyone to learn more. Thank you again, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.